Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Today is a special extra Sunday episode. There was a lot of feedback in yesterday's video. The overwhelming consensus was that you wanted this extra episode to look at a piece that was published this week in US-based Foreign Policy. The piece was called "Xi Jinping Does Not Have an Answer for China's Demographic Crisis." The piece is by Lizzi, a fellow on Chinese economy at the Asia Society Policy Institute's Center for China Analysis. So in today's episode, we will be unpacking Li's arguments. If you enjoy the special Sunday episode, don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribing and sharing is a big help, and Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description for those who want to help keep the channel financially sustainable. Now let's examine the piece, which we are now quoting directly. Chinese President Xi Jinping's recent article in Geostrategic, the Communist Party's flagship journal for outlining core ideology and policy, frames China's demographic challenges as a strategic opportunity. It offers Xi's most detailed vision yet for addressing the country's aging population, shifting from a labor-intense, population-driven economy to one powered by innovation, education, and productivity. Yet beneath the lofty rhetoric lies a familiar and contentious concept, 人口素质, or population quality. The notion of 素质 has long been a cornerstone of Chinese policymaking, shaping debates on everything from education to healthcare. On the surface, it advocates for cultivating a healthier, better educated, and more skilled population. But its implications run deeper and are more divisive. Historically, 素质 has been used to draw lines between urban elites and rural or migrant populations, carrying connotations of class bias and at times embracing eugenicist thinking. Implicit in calls for a high-quality population is the judgment of the low-quality counterpart, reinforcing societal divides in a way that is rarely acknowledged outright. What is striking is the empathetic personal stamp Xi has placed on this familiar rhetoric. He describes high-quality population development as a new concept, first proposed by himself, a policy pivot aimed at addressing demographic shifts by fostering a high-quality workforce. Xi's framing emphasizes a sharper economic focus, moving beyond controlling population size to prioritizing quality, optimizing structures, and enhancing mobility. Xi's vision is clear: a population that is educated, innovative, and adaptable, equipped to power China's ambitions to leapfrog the United States in next-generation advanced manufacturing and technology while remaining resilient to geopolitical headwinds. Yet the systemic realities of China's political and economic structures make its realization anything but straightforward. The gap between aspiration and implementation remains vast, with no easy solutions offered by Xi. It's true that the challenges of an aging population are not unique to China. Much of the developed world, particularly East Asia, is grappling with similar issues. Japan and South Korea, for instance, are contending with the burdens of a rapidly graying society. But China's situation stands apart in its complexity. Aging isn't merely a demographic hurdle. It is amplifying long-standing structural weaknesses. The vast obstacles hindering the implementation of Xi's vision lie in the entrenched flaws of China's economic and political systems, issues that Xi has either avoided addressing or delayed reforming. Persistent regional disparities continue to leave rural areas under-resourced and underserved, while the rigid hukou system, which ties access to essential public services like healthcare and education to your resident permit, effectively traps millions of low-opportunity regions, cutting them off from better healthcare, education, and jobs. Declining birth rates and shifting family norms reflect a younger generation increasingly unwilling or unable to embrace traditional expectations, squeezed by skyrocketing costs and evolving societal values. Further complicating matters, the state's tight grip on private enterprise has stifled the innovation and risk-taking spirit critical to driving genuine progress. For all its ambition, the path to achieving Xi's vision is riddled with contradictions, with labor mobility as a glaring example. While factory and service jobs in urban hubs seldom require a local hukou, access to top-tier schools and hospitals does, perpetuating a tiered system where affluent cities like Shanghai and Hangzhou boast cutting-edge elder care facilities and world-class healthcare for the wealthy, while rural areas in backwater provinces like Liaoning and Heilongjiang tell a starkly different story. Their aging farmers with no pensions often work well into their 70s, trapped by inadequate infrastructure and meagre local resources. As the population ages, these inequalities become even more pronounced. Older rural residents remain cut off from advanced medical care, while urban areas grapple with labour shortages in critical sectors like healthcare and elder services. Reforming the hukou system could ease these pressures by allowing for greater mobility and access to urban services, but such a move would disrupt deeply entrenched administrative structures, prioritizing control over equitable mobility. Resistance to such reforms, coupled with the slow pace of implementation, leaves these bottlenecks unresolved. Without meaningful redistribution, rural elderly populations will continue to be excluded from the healthcare and social support systems concentrated in urban centers. Yet Beijing's centralized governance and its reluctance to devolve power to local governments makes such redistribution exceedingly difficult to achieve, a stark reminder of the uneven distribution of China's modernization. Urban governance policies add yet another layer of complexity. Major hubs like Beijing and Shanghai actively limit population growth by restricting hukou transfers, channeling labor toward second and third tier cities. This approach creates a dynamic where migrants contribute economically to urban centers but remain excluded from the full benefits of urban life, entrenching disparities and undermining efforts to build a truly mobile and adaptable workforce. China's shifting social norms add another layer of complexity. Marriage and birth rates have plummeted, with the country's marriage rate falling to 4.8 per 1,000 people in 2022, down from double that a decade earlier. Meanwhile, the birth rate declined to 6.77 per 1,000 people in 2022, marking the lowest rate since records began in 1949. These declines are driven by skyrocketing housing costs, relentless job competition, and changing attitudes among younger generations for whom traditional family structures are increasingly unaffordable or unappealing. Financial incentives, subsidies for childcare, housing, or education might help, but they won't work without broader reforms that make family life less burdensome. Reducing costs, increasing gender equality, and improving work-life balance would require systemic change. But if history is any guide, the Chinese leadership's wariness of so-called welfarism, the belief that easing life's burdens risks fostering complacency, leaves little room for the flexibility and empathy such solutions demand. Meanwhile, the deeply ingrained cultural preference for men that continues to dominate workplaces will take time and concerted effort to shift. At the same time, the state pension system is lurching toward insolvency. Long plagued by low-yield investments and drained further by pandemic-related spending, China's pension funds are projected to run out by 2035. Raising the retirement age, already a politically sensitive issue, won't be enough to solve the problem. More sustainable reforms, such as diversifying investments and adopting market-driven strategies, would necessitate opening up capital markets and ceding some control over financial systems, a step for which Beijing has shown little appetite. Even as Xi champions a transition to an innovation-driven economy, his administration's previous approach to private enterprise has significantly eroded trust within the business and investment communities. The regulatory crackdown initiated in 2021 wiped out more than $1 trillion from the market value of major companies, severely impacting investor confidence. Breakthroughs in biomedicine, healthcare innovation, and new models of elder care delivery require more than state investment. They depend on the freedom of individuals and businesses to take risks, experiment, and occasionally fail. However, the state's growing control over private enterprise, coupled with inconsistent and at times capricious regulations, has fostered an environment where caution stifles creativity, eroding the foundations of innovation essential for meaningful progress. Comparisons with other aging societies offer valuable, if limited, insights. Japan illustrates the dangers of inertia, where delayed reforms led to stagnation and hindered adaptability, even as the country developed world-class elder care systems. South Korea's generous pro-natalist policies have largely fallen short, unable to overcome deep structural barriers such as high housing costs and rigid gender norms. Germany's relative success in leveraging immigration to mitigate aging pressure provides a compelling example of labour mobility in action, though such an approach remains politically unthinkable in China. These examples underscore a critical point. Tackling demographic challenges requires genuine flexibility, a willingness to innovate, and the resolve to break through deeply rooted systemic barriers. Whether Beijing can adapt these lessons to its own unique context remains an open question. Xi's rhetoric about a high-quality population acknowledges the need for change but stops short of embracing the systemic reforms necessary to achieve it. Empowering households, redistributing resources to bridge regional divides, and fostering the conditions for innovation would require a profound recalibration of Xi's governance philosophy. His personal reluctance to loosen the reins of power continues to constrain the state's capacity to respond effectively to the pressures of an aging society. Here ends the direct quote and today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a good Sunday, have a restful weekend, and we begin with a new week of updates tomorrow on Monday.